Well, good afternoon. It's Tuesday, November 19th. I'm getting several questions about Tesla. Each and every one of you know I'm still short since the 158s area, and we have been short tens of thousands of shares on the short side, and it's been a phenomenal trade. Coming into the next projected price move, which in pre-market it pretty much got into the 117s area, we covered quite a bit of shares, not a lot, about 40% of the holdings. And you got to remember now, when you get into a completed pattern, a price projection, a target, typically it change of a direction. Nothing goes straight up, nothing goes straight down. And yesterday, you had a wide price spread destruction. I mean, you went from 135 high all the way down to 119, over 15 points to the downside. So you can expect a bounce, and I expected a bounce. Now, for me, knowing that the bigger picture, the larger picture, is that to the downside, this has another anywhere from more than likely $10 to $15, another move to the downside before even considering for a solid bounce. The trend is down, and it's accelerating to the downside. So anything that's looking on a bounce, on a slight bounce with lighter volume, I'm looking to add those shares back. Now, here's what I'm looking at. And if you remember me teaching you, always look into how they come into the old swing points. This is a swing low, and that is back on November 8th of 132.32, which we got into adding to those shares yesterday. Number one, those who took the trade yesterday at that position. And so we're coming into that number, and remember, that was on 22.5 million shares to the downside, that range, that bar. You're coming up today with 15 million. Yes, we got a couple more hours of the day. Yes, I'm seeing that reject that. You take it on the 2 hour, and you can see this bar, just to see that you have a confirmation. So you take the look and you draw it all the way across. Now, are we coming into this on a daily basis with heavy volume or lighter volume? Need I say no more? So we were starting to add back to those shares as I posted earlier because it's rejecting higher prices. Plus, also I want you to take a look at what's the bar yesterday. You come down with 23 million. Also, when we get in, the last swing low of 22 million, and you're coming up with 15 million. Remember, supply and demand. When they want out, they want out. If this was a bottom to get back up, and I mentioned to several of you, yes, even on the webinar, we can test this low of 132.32, and that's what I was waiting for. And it still could happen in the next couple hours. But as you see the volume start contracting, there's no expansion, there's no volume to take it higher. I see it. It walks and squawks. It's talking to me. After you've done this for years and years, I've done it for 2 decades, but really identified these patterns in the past 16 years, that when you see volume is everything. The market is set up with volume. Where the volume goes, the market goes. You can't bust it higher with volume. They'll bust it lower. As long as they consolidate and hold about an area and they can't do it, it will just mean the larger pullback or the larger upside. Wrap your head around this, and this is why we added back to this. And we're going to look to continue adding if this thing continues to pull back and the volume starts to accelerate. That's why I did it. Remember, this takes hours. It takes years. Hopefully, I can compress 2 years into a couple of years for you, or some months for some of you, because you've got years behind you. I know many of you since day one have compressed that time. You're thinking differently. You're looking at charts differently. You're looking at volume differently. You're looking at the whole big picture differently. You have stops set up. You have a strategy that you're starting to develop around the personality you are. You're winning. If you think about it and just reflect where you've been from day one and where you're at today. Yeah, some of us, it takes a while to change bad habits. We continue thinking that I'll do the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results. You've heard this before. That's when you just get into paralysis and you're hoping and wishing and singing to somebody and hoping they'd listen. That don't work that way. This is why. Have a great afternoon.